Welcome to this video on how to integrate data into master data services using Verigin's BimlFlex. In the MDS admin web interface, start by creating a model. The model contains entities, and the entities contain attributes. The source for the data is the products table in AdventureWorks LT. In this example, the data steward will manually manage the color information for the product codes. The entity has two default attributes, name and code. The code represents the primary key equivalent in the MDS model entity. Two extra attributes are added to the entity, one which will represent the manually edited attribute the data steward works with, the other as an example of a system-derived attribute. The following new attributes are added: color as a text attribute and source system for the record source as a text attribute. The source columns for name and product number will also be used, but they'll be mapped to the predefined name and code attributes. Once the model, entity, and attributes are created in MDS, they're available to explore in the Model Explorer. It's also possible to build the BimlFlex load process. The creation of the entity has created a staging table in the MDS database. This table will be used by BimlFlex for the data load process. The default BimlFlex load behavior is to check for existing records before loading them into the MDS staging table. As the data will be maintained within MDS, it would be counterproductive to overwrite the records with the data from the source. For some scenarios, this is not required, so the lookup behavior can be changed in BimlFlex. For the lookup to work, the data in the MDS entity needs to be exposed through an export view. This view is created through the Integration Management Admin UI. Create an export view for the product entity with the name product, the same name as the entity. Once the entity, staging table, and export view are available, it's time to prepare to load metadata. The metadata to load the MDS product entity with the source data includes connections to the AdventureWorks LT source, the MDS database destination, the Biml catalog for auditing and logging. The AdventureWorks LT connection has the integration stage defined as staging table. The MDS connection has the integration stage defined as master data services. A single batch has been defined. A single project has been defined to load data from the AdventureWorks LT source to the MDS target using the defined batch. An object for the source table has been defined, as well as an object for the MDS destination. The MDS schema name for staging table is STG. The default name for the entity is the entity name with leaf appended. This corresponds to the staging table created when we created the entity. The columns sheet contains a subset of the available columns from the source table. The destination table contains both the system attributes and the added color and source system attributes. The name, product number, and color columns have been defined with the MDS columns as target. The MDS source system column has an expression to populate it with the record source code. If the sourcing was done from a staging table as part of a data warehouse load, this information would already be derived and available. It is time to build the load project in Biml Studio. Refresh the metadata and review the contents of the logical view. This project does not create any tables, as it is loading from an existing source to the staging table created by MDS. It contains a single project, a single batch, and a single load package. Building this project creates an SSIS project with the batch and the load package. Opening the project in Visual Studio shows the batch for orchestration calling the load package. The load package contains a data flow task to load the data from the source into the staging table. The process does a lookup to the subscription view checking for existing records. The process uses a set of variables to control the MDS load behavior. Once the load completes, the package calls the staging store procedure to start the MDS ingestion process. Running the batch will load the data from the source to the MDS staging table and call the staging procedure to load it into MDS. Once the load is completed, the data can be reviewed in the Model Explorer, and the load batch is visible in the Import Data webpage. The MDS load process is now completed and the packages are created. There are some optional steps to the load process that can be added to BimlFlex using extension points. For earlier MDS versions, or when the housekeeping tasks should be included in the load, it's possible to truncate the staging tables before load. This extension point is added as a batch pre-process and cleans the staging table before the load. The records loaded by the staging table load process are not validated. An option for the load process is to finish with a call to the MDS model validation process. This will validate all records in the specified MDS model and apply any business rules. This concludes the demonstration of the MDS load process in BimlFlex.